everybody to Blerdlines. This is your man Cam. With me, as always, is
Big Josh.
And we are here to talk about Star Trek Starfleet Academy. See, I got it right.
Look at you.
As the resident Star Trek Trekkies in the show, we jointly watched Star Trek Starfleet Academy. D has affectionately said no.
Graciously bowed out.
You know, he's like, he watched about 15 minutes. He's like, I'm good. I think you guys got this one.
Nah.
So as the resident Trekkies, we are here. We watched it. It just concluded. And honestly, you know what? We'll do first takes and then we'll go deeper. First take, I would say for myself, a lot better than I thought it was going to be. I got a good whiff of that Dawson's Creek, One Tree Hill, the OC, Melrose Place type of, because all the covers were very just like, hey, look, pretty people laying in the grass and they're all cool. Like, what are we doing? This is not.
I hated that photo shoot. I really did.
It just didn't give you confidence that this was a Star Trek show. And so I would say I came in a little more cautious. And I think for me, it was like almost every other episode was like one for us, the Trekkies, one for the normies. And it kept bouncing between that pretty much the duration of the series, for good and for bad. Because one, the cast, I would say, is a super attractive cast. Like, they just a little too hot. Like, I mean, you got sexy Klingon, you got random fish boy, you got some really hot chick over here. Like, what are we doing? Like, normally we got one or two hot chicks, and then we'll have a regular people. But this was everyone.
Right. This was just all beautiful.
Yeah,
all beautifully polished young
100%. And I would say like that kind of turned me off a little bit on the show itself because it just didn't feel like a Star Trek show. But to their credit, their supporting cast, aka the adults, were amazing. Every single adult, every single veteran actor that's on this show murdered it. Like, and every scene that they came in, they 100% stole the show. They were super funny. They had good bits, but they added the level of gravity that I think the show needed, because if it was just powered by the youth, it would not work. And I think that the supporting cast really helped out the overall show of it and made it better. And I think those are the two things I took away just from watching it, where it's just like the cast is very, very attractive, and bits and pieces. You got Rebel guy, you got ambitious girl, you got, the gay Klingon guy or whatever. Cool. This is all that's getting the headlines. But I thought in general, the supporting cast really anchored the show to give it a sense of like, hey, this is Star Trek. Yes, there's pretty people. Yes, we have the teen angst, but we still have a lot of the sci-fi elements that we know and want to bring into. So I give a really big shout out to the supporting cast. They really
agreed. They
really helped me enjoy the show more than if it was just going to be freaking just pretty people in space.
In particular, Paul Giamatti. Good God, he's only in 3 episodes, and it's like, first episode, you're like, oh, you get kind of like a Mud kind of feel to his character. That he's going to be sort of like a goofy foil and, a little bit of a threat. And then in the second episode, man, like that speech that he delivers at the end where he's talking to Captain Ake, and he's like, yo, you gave me purpose. Like, before we met, I didn't really have a reason to be the way that I am. And now, oh, son, it is on every time I see you, lady. It is on and popping. And you got it wasn't just Paul Giamatti delivering lines. It punched past, okay, this is Paul Giamatti. You really just don't like his character after that. He makes you really detest his character.
Yeah.
And
100%.
Yeah. And the only complaint that I have as far as he's concerned is that I wish there was more Noose Baraka in the show. His character, Noose Baraka, it was just gold every time he was on the screen.
I think he brought the. I think it was funny because there's a really good moment where I was like, okay, things are a little too happy. Like rebel, good looking rebel boy. He's already like happy. He got his girl. Things is going good. Everyone's happy. They're all going through it. Hey, we're in class and just joking around. And then when he shows up, boom, it blows up everything. And there's real stakes. People die, stuff happens, things are stolen. They have to really figure this out. So I think that he brought a good level of balance where, like, I think that if they had someone of a lesser caliber in terms of a main antagonist, it would have just been boring. But every time he shows up, he's putting his foot into everything. He's like, I literally hate all of you. And I want you to know this multiple times. And I will show that over and over again. And I think he did a good job of just scene stealing and also his connection with Lake and they're just like Ake and they're just like button heads. And I like that there's like half respect, half and like I despise. And I'm glad that he does that level. And they don't make him a dumb antagonist either, which is good.
No.
Like they really make him a smart and cunning person, and it really balances out what the Federation is trying to do. And when he comes in, he really does upend things. And so it gives you a good sense that here's the Federation and kind of in its diminished form, trying to get bigger. And then here's another force breaking that as much as he can. And I think that was a good thing that they actually brought into the show that helped out a lot.
And now, are we doing negatives yet? Because I want to make sure I don't.
We can finish up the positives. We're a little bit more positive.
Okay. Just the cast in general, the guy that played Caleb, Sandro Rosta. There we go. I thought he was great. I thought Gina Yashere, as Laura Thought was amazing. I wish she got more screen time. And what's funny is they never explained the thing with
Jem'Hadar and a Klingon.
And a Klingon. They don't explain it. And you know what?
It's fine.
I would rather that they did, but it doesn't take away from, like, her performance is absolutely stellar. Yeah. And I don't think it takes away from anything that happened on screen when she was on screen. She was bloody amazing. Carice Brooks, I thought initially that she was going to be my least favorite character. And what you realize is when you get to the episode where she has to basically have her matrix rebuilt and, she's got two separate lives that she's lived now. I loved the subtle changes that she as an actress made to how she delivers the character and the character's lines. I'm annoyed that it didn't happen earlier on in the series so that you got an equal level of before and after for her. Yeah. But I like where they're going with her and how she's choosing to sort of interpret how the character is being written. I like it. And I want to see more. I just really, really, really wish, because I think that it's allowing her to flex as an actress in a different way than just, everything's puppy dogs and rainbows all the time. That was annoying to me, to be 100% honest. It really did, it made her my least favorite character. And by the end, she had definitely moved up through the character ranks, for lack of a better term. And I definitely wanted to see more. I was really super intrigued by the choices she was making in terms of delivery. Just even her speech pattern was different.
Yeah, and I think they if they would have done that, say, as a deliberate choice midway in the show, so you could see a good stint, I think it would have been a great balance. But instead, you got annoying Sam for pretty much 2/3 of the show, and then you get evolved Sam in the last 1/3. And evolved Sam which is like you get a little bit of it, and it's good when it's there. But you would have, if they would have split it in half, it would have been a better of a balance. And I think that way, where you have that thing where, because, initially the character is literally like a couple weeks old, essentially, as being a being. And then when you get to the end, after going through a lot of trials and tribulations, now they're older, they have a certain thing. And they even said, I didn't really like my old self. It was like, girl, you were like 2 seconds old. Of course you're not going to like yourself. So I like that aspect of it. And I think that they did do a good job. And, one of my critiques for Discovery was like, besides the core group of the bridge crew, you didn't really know the rest of the bridge. And I think in this they did a good job of at the very least giving every character 1 to 2 episodes to a little bit flesh out who they are as a character, but then also anything that's background about their species and that, right? You got gay Klingon who shout out to Kareem Dayan. He's a great actor that really did his thing with this character. The gay part and everything else, I'm still like, I guess I'm not sure if it really helped or hurt, but I think that with those nuances, he did a really good job with it.
Yeah.
And I think that they could have one part that for me that was a little bit of a letdown was like, hey man, if you're a pacifist in terms of Klingon, cool. But when shit needs to go down, I need to see some Klingon stuff. I need you chopping somebody's head off. Like that's all. I think if that little small twist would have happened, that would have showed that he chooses to be a pacifist, but he can still kill you if he needs to. And I think they didn't give you that level of it. So he's pretty much kind of the same throughout the whole thing. And so it didn't really give me enough more to like say, okay, you being a pacifist, gay, whatever, didn't really help your character at all. But then the other characters as well, like Fish Boy, you're like, he's kind of whatever. He's the token ass boy, token asshole. But they fleshed him out a little bit more. Hey man, fish out of water, quote unquote. When he's back home, he's one way. When he's out in this academy, he's a completely different character. So okay, cool. Yeah. Flesh out a little bit. And then you have Captain Girl, who, you know, she's
Captain
already
Girl.
she's a Nepo baby. So now she's trying to prove that she's not a Nepo baby. That she deserves to be there, which again, good job of like showing that at least that growth and what that is. And so and yeah, Sandro Rosta, props to him. Because like I said, as I say over, everyone is really good looking, so it's easy just to skate on you're good looking. But for him, they give him enough where he could be the rebel, he could be vulnerable, he could be annoying, he could be super smart, and they balance those out pretty well. So like he surprised me as a character where I thought I was going to like really I'd be annoyed with him almost all the time, but honestly, it was only like a little bit of it, and you got to see a really good sense of the character's growth from his motivations at the first episode to his motivations by the end of the episode, end of the series.
Yeah, he definitely delivered angsty rebel guy without being annoying, pretty angsty rebel guy.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so slicing that piece, that pretty boy piece off really helped endear the character to the viewer, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. Like you at the end of the day, like by the end of the series, you enjoy all the cast. Like I think there's there's no one where I was like, like even in Discovery, there's people I still don't know. Black guy number 1, black guy number 2, random ass android girl. Like I still give them those nicknames because I don't know who they are and I don't care. But in this one, I actually did.
I nerd out, so I know their names, but like I had to really work to remember their names.
Exactly. Where this one, they gave ample time to the main cast to give you, and then I would say to further, the supporting cast, the adults and stuff, like Tig Notaro. I'm so glad that they like let her just be her,
stuff,
and just be in Star Trek because she's so much fun. She's well worth it. I'm glad that they've figured out a way to keep her integrated in anything that they're doing going forward because she's super dope. She always steals all the scenes, and she's like a much grounded, needed character for a lot of this stuff that's going on, which is dope.
And getting her in the captain's chair for the penultimate the episode before the season finale.
Yeah, super
aces. I loved every second of it. I like the arc with Tarima, the Betazoid girl. I feel like that was pretty well. I feel like for the most part, the characters that they decided to home in on and give a story and sort of flesh out, they did a really good job of.
Yeah.
Caleb's thing with, the thing with his, finding his mom and being a rebel and all this other jazz, that never got old. That never got annoying. It was just the right amount in the story.
Yeah.
The Avery Brooks episode.
I was going to say the same thing. Having and again, we go back to what Professor D was talking about, how this era of Star Trek heavily leaned on nostalgia. And I will say for Star Trek, Starfleet Academy in general, they had bits of a nostalgia. And then that was the only episode I could say was like a hardcore, like, no. Yes, if you are a Trekkie fan, this is your episode. And I think they really delivered in that, which I was curious to see how they would deliver. But I have to say they did a really good job of bookending our favorite captain, Cisco, and making it relevant for these characters and why he's so relevant. And I like that they did that.
Gigantic shout out to Tawny Newsome, who I saw several interviews with her, and it's very clear that she advocated really hard for this episode to happen and stuck her foot all up in it to make it so that it wasn't just pandering to the fans. It was a well-structured, well-written episode. Easily my favorite of the season, aside from the finale.
Yeah.
And it, the great piece, the great add-on to that is that they got Avery Brooks involved. They got him to put his stamp on it. The poetry at the end was something that he'd written, because he writes tons of poetry amongst the other 25,000 amazing things that he does. He has a book of poetry that he has. And so he gave them the recording of him reciting the poetry, as a sort of like a dovetail, dovetail / bookend to the episode. Tawny Newsome as a Cardassian Trill was a little weird for me, because the Cardassian killed Dax, Jadzia Dax.
Yeah.
So I was kind of like, weird. I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah.
That said, she killed it.
Yeah,
it worked. It worked. Like whatever issues I had got blown away by her performance. She's only in 2-3 scenes.
Yeah.
And
it worked.
It didn't even seem like it was Tawny Newsome. Like, and credit to her as an actress, because she definitely employed and brought a bunch of different skill sets and a bunch of different aesthetics to playing Dax in just a couple of scenes, to the point where I did not realize it was her.
Yeah,
until after the episode aired,
and it was a good reveal when they did that. And also shout out to Sirach Lofton as Jake Sisko doing the cameo as an adult and talking about that was pitch perfect. So I think in its positives, and this is the thing that it's very interesting to see the discourse online. I think they hit a lot of the beats that were the good parts of this new era of Star Trek, where they had a bits of nostalgia. They had a solid cast where they really fleshed them out. And then they hit the spots of pacing where it's like enjoyable to watch. And I think and that's my positives in terms of those sections of that.
Yeah. And I think, I was concerned, like the first episode where the cadet runs away from combat training, and there's a shot of a stone that is the Booth B memorial. It was a little heavy-handed in the first episode, and I was like, if this is gonna be like this every episode, I'm not gonna enjoy this, or I'm not gonna enjoy those scenes, because that was a little ham-handed. That said, really, it was only just sprinkles here and there from that point forward.
Yeah.
So it never got overbearing. It never got to the point where you just roll your eyes like, yet another thing. Oh, somebody's walking past the memorial wall again.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. Like it wasn't heavy handed. I will say though, as we mentioned, the memorial wall, little things like, Nog being, I think it was Ensign Nog on the walls. So he just died as an ensign. Like he just stayed an ensign for his whole Starfleet career. Little things like that, just kind of like, all right, come on, y'all. Like you can invent like, okay, Julian Bashir was always a lieutenant, really? Like he just like
there's a couple things they could have done. Yeah, there's a couple things they could have done it. And then the last
I'm not saying everybody had to be a captain, but like, you could make Julian a lieutenant commander or a commander at that. Like, come on, man. Like, you being silly.
And the last thing I'll say before we get to the negatives is one thing I did like is shout out to the budget, the costuming, and the set designers, because
the
set is bananas, and it's
all practical.
Yeah, and it was the amount of like real stuff, and I think I loved the design of all of the new ships and how they function and how that stuff.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed a lot of that, especially the non-Federation people. And then also, I really enjoyed the costuming in general, where we, traditionally in Star Trek, it's usually you got one suit and that's all you got. But this one, they had jackets, they had zip ups, they had this, they had that,
Yeah.
and it felt like an academy. Like if I'm at a private school, you have a typical uniform, but you have variations of that uniform, and I think that helped give the students like this is a real college, right? Sometimes they have zip ups, and they have their t-shirts, sometimes they have jackets, but it kept that feel. So I like that. I love the costuming choices of it.
And so before we get to the negatives, I definitely want to big up Karim Diane again. Met him at Comic-Con. As I mentioned in our Comic-Con wrap up, I met him and his dad, and just good kid, man. Really, really good kid. Dope head on his shoulders. And if he ever sees this, killed it as Jaden. There's all this back and forth about, a gay Klingon, what are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. Look, man, like, it wasn't a subtraction. Like, he did a good job with the character. Like, to the point that you made before about, seeing a Klingon do Klingon things, there's a couple of times where, somebody tried to flex, and he was like, yo, like, don't get it twisted. You still catch this elbow.
Yeah.
Like when he went to when he went to Fishboy's wedding, and he thought he was being abducted. he popped out of the portal and was ready to go. Yeah. So clearly, he's a pacifist, but don't get it twisted. Like, he's not, he ain't nothing sweet over here.
Yeah.
He'll still do it. Darum's wedding was definitely an eye opener, where he popped out of the portal with whatever he had in his hand, ready to beat on whoever it was that kidnapped this boy. But listen, he, like I said, his performance, especially the episode that focused on Jaden and his past and his parents and his parents being in a triad, basically being polyamorous.
Yeah.
And the positioning of the Klingon. Thank God they dealt with the larger issue of the Klingon.
That I'm really happy they did that, because that was a lingering question from Discovery.
It really was.
And we found, like, hey, where are the Klingons? Like, we just, in 5 seasons of Discovery, we had the shitty ass design they did in that first season. Then they they kind of addressed it before they left to the future. When they got to the future, we didn't see none of a Klingon in the background. And that was annoying. And to the point where we're like, yo, where's the Klingon? So at the very least, I like that they gave an episode. And that's one thing too that they did, I would say, again, we'll go positives, is they did do things in the Starfleet Academy to address plot holes from Discovery. Like, I have my problems with Discovery, but there's parts where they literally put in some plot holes, like, yo, what happened about this? And then here's the episode. Oh, what happened with this? Boom, here's an episode. So it shouldn't have happened in another series for those plot holes and drugs. Another diss on Discovery, but it did help the Starfleet Academy to have a more robust type of show outside of just, these are kids at school doing kid stuff. And I think that helped, like, flesh it out. So now that we've poured a lot of positives, what's the negatives? Because that's what everyone's looking for. And I'll go first. I would say the negatives, is they really tried, they pulled a piece of Discovery that I just didn't enjoy, which is the extra feelings. Everybody got feelings. Somebody's crying. Someone is this. Someone's depressed. Someone has trauma. Blah, 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 blah. Like, again, cool. This is a true human trait. That's not saying it isn't. But I remember my brother-in-law's talking about Discovery. And he was like, yo, who crying on the bridge? There's no crying on the bridge. You go into your room and cry, and then you come back ready for battle. Why are they always crying? And so I think for a Starfleet Academy, again, it is kids, so I'm giving that grace. But the amount of feelings and trauma and depression and uncertainty, insecurities, they kind of went a little bit too much on it, because, again, it's kids, quote unquote, but it's the failing, I think, of the overall of this era of Star Trek, where I think the part about Star Trek that we really enjoyed was the sci-fi Star Trek. It's space and it's crazy, but
Sure.
the underlining pinning was it was still human, right? We still figured out these things. Deep Space Nine is a great example. Voyager is like there's everyone's still human, but they had a job to do. Where I think in this era it's flipped, where like the emotions are almost the stars, and you're in space, and so it gets annoying to a point sometimes where you're just like, yo, man, I'm just trying to see what's going on in space. Why am I worrying about? Why are we doing 25 minutes on trauma and depression? And so it takes away from your experience as a Trekkie to find this part, right? And I think that's something that they got better at balancing this than Discovery, but it was still I think a hindrance to a lot of its like pacing.
I would say for me, the negatives would be similar to Discovery. There's a bridge crew on the Athena, and we meet him, but there's zero interaction with him. None whatsoever. Outside of the first episode. First episode, I was like, oh crap, we're gonna get to know these guys, and we totally don't. I would say also what? It was emo. It definitely, like you bring up a valid point that, you know, the emotional component sort of seems to take front seat before you get to the science fiction. And like, it's Star Trek is always a human drama first, but making it that emotional, that, you know, that heavy all the time, you know, it's, I think they struck a better balance with it in Starfleet Academy than they did with Discovery, because every episode of Discovery was just somebody crying. But to their credit, you know, they did a better job of balancing it. It just seemed like it was still a little heavy on the emo stuff, in Starfleet Academy. What else? Paul Giamatti did not get enough screen time. Full stop. That man bodied every episode he was in. Oh, wait, one more positive. Shout out to Holly Hunter, because I'd never seen her this bright and airy and just, you know, having a good time in a role. Well, I'm sure she has a good time in all her roles, but like, she's just really saccharine in a really fun kind of way, that I've never seen her play before. And it was really fun to see her do that. That said, I also felt like she was kind of, there was something missing from how they inserted her into the show, and so that sort of affected her character's presence on the show as Chancellor. So that kind of, you know, that there was something missing there that I can't really put my finger on, that I hope they address in season 2. But overall, yeah, I would say I didn't really have that many complaints about the show overall. They didn't do the thing that I was worried they were going to do, which was be ham-handed with the memorial things, and the throwbacks to original series and next gen era characters. Yeah, I just, you know, I was worried that they were going to, like, how they were going to work in, them being in peril and them being in danger, and they leaned all the way into that shit and killed one of the cadets. So that was an interesting choice, that I did not foresee at all. Killed one of the instructors and killed one of the cadets. So that was a big deal. I wish they'd have flushed out the Furies a little bit more.
Yeah, I would hope they, like, the Furies, I would say they could have fleshed out the War College as well. I think there was an opportunity to have almost like a dueling cast, and like they kind of hinted at it a little bit. Yeah, but they didn't really, like, in the War College. I can't think of a person that's a World College person, and I think that's the thing where, besides the Betazoid, but like I think they could have fleshed them out a little bit more to give them a balance of it. Right, these are the goody two shoes Starfleet people. These are the War College, it's a little bit more grittier. And they kind of had that when they did the when Moose Baraka came back in, but they didn't really flesh it out more. And I think that because I was thinking about what's actually on for Star Trek right now, right? You have Strange New Worlds, which is about to end its final season. You have this, and that's about it. So after this is done, another season, which will be cool, but Strange New Worlds is done. So franchise wise, Star Trek, there's not much on the horizon. You have
they're looking at doing year one, Kirk year one.
They have that on the horizon. Star Trek Legacy is still like a fan theory type of a thing. So
I wish they'd just go ahead and do it already. It's sitting right there. Like, why? Like, come on.
And I think also too, with what they shot themselves in the foot by literally, it was like one day it was like, oh, Star Trek, Starfleet Academy gets renewed for season 2. And I was like, oh, cool. And literally the next day it was like, but it's this last season.
Yeah.
And like by revealing that now did nothing for them from a promo start, from a marketing standpoint. People might go and watch it, but like I don't know what the reasoning was that like if you're trying to promote a show and you want this to be a show, and they did a solid job for a season 1. Now, when I say solid, people watched it and people either liked it or hated it, which is to me is solid.
Yeah, and I think, and to the point that I think you're getting ready to make. Sometimes bad press is good, like, and I feel like we've gotten to this point where people didn't like it, so we can't, like, if they're talking about it, then clearly it's hitting a nerve, and I think that's more important than everybody just liking it. Like, if they're still watching it, like, it's not a critical dud. Like, there's no one out there. There's not enough, in my opinion, out there. I think they're louder, but they're not more people who don't like it. And so, look, what I anticipate happening is there's going to be a letter writing campaign or an email or or change.org petition, from the people that did like the show.
Yep.
And they're going to petition for the show to stay on. And I would not be mad. I wouldn't sign the petition, because I'm not a petition signer, like, not for that. So, but nonetheless, I feel like I have a strong feeling that the fans are going to show out the way that they did when the original series was going to get a can, and even Enterprise was not worth saving. Enterprise was not worth
real Trekkie fans know. If you were there for Enterprise, the highs and the lows. That's how I judge. If you tell me you watched all of Star Trek but Enterprise, then I don't believe you. You have to watch Enterprise.
Doug, I have not watched all of Star Trek Enterprise.
And I watched it all. I watched it all from the thing. And I did not
watch.
I had to go through the whole, again, it was a family thing. Watch my family.
It's a continuum, and it's on a continuum. So I get it. And at some point I will work my way around to doing it, I guess.
And I still haven't watched Section 31 yet. I will do sometime in the next couple months. And I will report back. You guys get my full reaction. But I think I think for Academy, I think the digs on it, which was interesting to me, was always funny, was gay Klingon was always one. Captain Ake with no shoes on all the time, which is hilarious. And honestly, what I liked about Holly Hunter's performance is, like you said, I don't think I've ever seen her in this a positive light.
No,
she out here just bubbling and cracking jokes. Like, she has never been that in any role I've seen. So for me, I was just like, yo, I've never seen her act in this type of a role, which
it's fun.
And it was fun. And I think that's my takeaway from the pool of the cynical part, is that, like, all the veteran actors had fun doing this. And I think that's something that I've been noticing more in a lot of modern TV making these days, where when you can tell that the actor is having fun, it makes the show better. And I think that
absolutely.
And I think that with all the naysayers and all that stuff with this one, like, the supporting cast, the quote unquote adults, they had so much fun making this. And you can kind of tell because it shows up on screen. Now with the Star Trek pieces of it, is it a Star Trek show? I'm like, yeah, I would say a good solid half the episodes are pure Star Trek. Then there's a couple 100%. Episodes that are some, more kiddie, like teen angsty type situations, insecurities, blah, 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 blah,
Listen,
blah.
The prank episode is a personal favorite. Prank episode was awesome. Mostly because that was me in high school. Like if you violate it, I would find a way to embarrass you. So
And I
that was
think,
that spoke to me.
and so I think the one thing I would say is I think the people, the detractors of it have a very specific notion of what they think Star Trek is. And
Yes.
when they saw it, they were like, no. And Discovery had kind of the similar type of thing, because I had to say, when I watched the first season's Discovery, I was like, why do the Klingons look weird? And why is this chick super just not a captain type character? She's just reckless and dumb and does stupid ass shit, gets people killed. So it took me a while to warm up to it. I think that I personally enjoy the flex of where Star Trek has been going. Like, whether I like it or not, I just like that they're trying to do something. I don't need original Star Trek retread now. You know,
So you don't think it's woke?
I will say for that one particular situation, that the one problem in Hollywood in general is they don't do a good job of trying to introduce modern themes into their fiction. And so when they do it overhandedly type of thing. Do we need a gay Klingon that wears dresses in Star Trek? Probably not. But is he in there, and does it distract from the show when you're watching it? It doesn't at all. Like, no. and that to me is a success, right? Like, he's part of it. That's part of his character, and it works. And then that's about it. So for me, it didn't really see quote unquote wokeness or whatever. Tig Notaro, who is a lesbian woman, and you know that they have a that in this show as well, but it's subtle and it works, but it still fits, right? So my thing is, it's like when people say something's woke or whatever, there is a level of representation and all that. But my thing is, does it add to your story? Does it take away from it? Does it add the narrative and the plot? And if it adds to it and doesn't take away, cool, do what you want to do. But if it does thing where...
And it's clear that, and to make it clear, that's what you mean when you say you didn't necessarily need his character. Yes. It's not that you didn't need a gay character. It's not that you didn't need a Klingon character. It's just, is it going to add or subtract? In what ways is it going to add or subtract from the story? So I want to make that clear so that it doesn't sound like you're just tossing off the fact that he's gay and exactly. No, we didn't know. I didn't want him in there.
Yeah, and I think that's my thing, where I think, and then what ends up happening is you just get the headlines and then you don't actually watch it, because like the Klingon episode was really dope. It showed exactly his character, how he looks at it, what he believes, what informed his choices, and it showed the full flesh of the character. Great, did a great job. It makes perfect sense for why the character is the way it is and how he fits into the cast. I thought that was done really, really well. And so my mind is like, yo, you can put anything you want in a story, but make sure it makes sense for your actual story and your plot. If it's just there just to be there, then that's the part that everyone's mad about. But if it's there and it adds to your stuff, freaking awesome. So I think that's that part where, it gets a little bit unfair of a critique for that part of it. And it's more fair to critique it on other aspects of it, right? Pacing, lack of character development for the bridge crew, like those types of things. And I think that's a lot of their pieces they pulled from Discovery have that, right? A little bit more a little too emo. Like I said, unknown freaking bridge crew, like that kind of thing. So there's little things that like they learn the wrong lessons from Discovery, but then the other parts of expanding, like I personally liked all the random ass aliens that I saw in the background. And some of the halfsies, it didn't make sense because they didn't explain it. And like you said, either don't explain it or explain it. And I'm glad that they didn't explain Genie Yashir's character further, because it would probably make our heads explode. And we're just like, wait, that doesn't make any sense.
Just one line,
one line of dialogue. Shout out to Professor D.
Hey. Yeah, just one line. They found, eventually they found a way to get him off the white, and the side effect was blah 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 blah.
Exactly. Like, that would have been cool.
They were able to procreate because the white was inhibiting generations of Jem'Hadar before.
Or
easy money.
Exactly. Or just make it a different one. Like, so it's like I think a lot of their negs come from shooting themselves in the foot or painting themselves into a corner. And I think that's the part. And I think that's where they were a little too ambitious, and they could have been ambitious in other areas and less ambitious in some. Like easy layups, they would make it harder for themselves. And that's the thing I noticed as a whole for this series. But I think the other parts of just like having a solid storyline, having a good cast, and like delivering on that, I think they did a good job of that. Will this win any new Star Trek fans? I don't think so. Maybe, but
Maybe.
I really don't feel, if I was coming into Star Trek, I know nothing about it, and I watched the first episode, I don't know if this would win me over. For existing Trekkie fans, we're like, we don't have much, so we're watching it, and we're kind of like, okay, you got me. I'm just slightly in, but I'm not all the way in. I think that was it.
Well, and so just in my perusing of the internet, as it were, I've noticed that there are there are a few younger fans of Star Trek who absolutely are just head over heels in love with this show. There's two, and I wish I could remember their names. Their names, doggone it. Yeah, stuttering for no reason. I wish I could remember their names. But there's several young Star Trek fans that I started following who absolutely are head over heels about this thing. And, it's so if that's who it attracted and it inspired them, like their whole online persona, their whole IG persona is Star Trek based, which is mind blowing to me to see somebody that looks like they're in their 20s, doing their online presence and having that be their sort of avatar online, and like every post is Star Trek related. That's kind of mind blowing to me, and it's heartening. They're the ones who are going to carry it forward long after we're gone.
Facts. Big facts. And I would say, quickly before on the more on the positive end, but I think the younger gen that's getting into Star Trek and they've come in at this like different era, and completely aside, but relevant, when Jon Stewart was interviewing George Lucas and he asked George, like, what was the most interesting thing that you've learned from your time doing all the Star Wars stuff? And what he said was, I have fans that are different, that came in from different eras of it. And when he said that, that made perfect sense, because Jon Stewart was basically like, my son was like, oh, you're interviewing George Lucas? Tell him that Phantom Menace is my favorite movie. And I told my son, no, it's not.
Yeah.
And then George basically said, he's like, you have to realize every franchise will have different types of fans that come in at different eras. And Star Trek is in that same space right now, where you have Star Trek fans that started with Discovery season 1. And this is their era of Star Trek. There's fans
working
like
their way backwards.
Yep.
Right.
There's fans like us that literally started at, back then. Like I started on New Next Generation. My dad started with the original Star Trek and the cartoons, and the original with Kirk.
Same here. I started on the original series, the reruns of the original series in the 70s.
So there's kids now that are using Academy or Lower Decks as that's their entry into Star Trek. So I think it'll be interesting to see going forward where they kind of go with it, with all these mergers and acquisitions and all that kind of randomness. I do hope they do the easy layup that is Star Trek Legacy, or they, those types of things. That could be some fun stuff. I think the future aspect of Star Trek that was established in Discovery is worth exploring. I think that's the one thing I do enjoy. I like that it's chaos and they have to kind of start all over again. It's not pristine like it used to be. Strange New Worlds has done a great job of fitting the nostalgia niche that everybody wanted, and they've done a great job from one all the way to there. Lower Decks brought in another fun nostalgia, but also just hilariousness of it. I've rewatched it multiple times and I laugh every single time. Like it just doesn't, it's just really good. And then also shout out to Star Trek Prodigy. If you have not watched that, that is literally the extension of Voyager. It starts as a kid show, but when it gets to the end, that shit is at times,
it gets pretty raw.
Yep. Times better than a lot of the live action. So I think as a Star Trek fan, as a Trekkie, we have to realize that there's going to be different types of iterations, and we'll come in at those different times. And so us old heads that are, have seen everything and most of it, we're now in that same one where we're getting a lot more, we're softening a little bit on, because I remember when I first watched Discovery, I was like, I don't know. And then I got to like 2 or 3 seasons in, I was like, this is pretty dope. And then 4 and 5 is a whole nother, we shall not talk about that anymore.
No, we won't.
But
But yeah, look, the future's bright, man. Like if they're gonna be cranking out stuff like this, I hope the rumors that Kurtzman might be out are not true, because he's been for the most part a good steward of the franchise thus far. So I would not mind seeing more of what he has in mind. I would like a little bit more variety in terms of tone and theme. But for the most part, I'm okay with where Star Trek is currently. And I'm definitely looking forward, if the year one rumors are true and they're going to sort of profile the handoff from Pike to James Kirk as captain of the Enterprise. Yeah, sure. I mess with that. I definitely, if it's going to have the same sort of tonal attitude of Strange New Worlds, but have the Jim Kirk sort of wild cowboy out in space approach to exploration, I'm here for it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that I'm curious. Again, it's one of those things where I'm still curious, right? Like if I wasn't curious, then I can move on and go on to the other things. But I still
want to see more.
Yeah, I still want to see more. Like I'm curious about the new world. I'm scared. Like even Strange New Worlds. Like I like that it's an era that we don't know about and we get to see it. Like I love the crossover with Lower Decks, because there was parts where they didn't want to tell Pike his future, and Pike was like, "Yo, dude, I already know. It's fine." He's like, "I already know what's going to happen. It's cool. I'm just living my life, and when I get to that point, I'll just salute." But I like that at the very least in this era of Star Trek, they've been doing some interesting things. Whether I agree or not, I'm still glad it's there. Like I hate Picard season 2, but I'm glad that there was a season 2 that got to season 3, because season 3 is amazing, right? Like my parents hadn't watched Picard. They're watching. And I told my mom, I was like, "You can just watch season 3 and you're fine." My dad was like, "No, we got to watch 1." I was like, "Oh." So I sat down and watched Picard season 1, first 3 episodes with them again. And it reminded me of a couple of things. And I was like, "Oh, okay, I remember this." Season 1 wasn't bad. Yeah, it wasn't bad.
It wasn't bad. It was not bad at all.
But the other aside was hanging out with my parents. We were watching reruns of 227, and a random guest appearance by none other than Worf, Michael Dorn.
What?
Because I heard his voice. I heard his voice in the background, and I was like, "What the hell's going on?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, that's right. When this show was on, there wasn't that many black shows, so they just like ruffled through everybody."
Had all the black peoples.
But yeah, I would say on a scale of 0 to will Professor D watch this, I give it a very strong 7. 7.5. Like I can say I enjoyed episodes. There's parts that made me cringe, but in general, I didn't feel like it was a waste of time. And I think
I'd say a solid 7.5.
Yeah,
I co-sign that. Solid 7.5.
Yeah,
not an 8.
Yeah, I think if there's a lot of plot things and writing that could have done it to push it to that 8 level, and it did have some bright spots in terms of like the Cisco episode. The 2-part finale was really good. Like again, when it was Star Trek, it was really good Star Trek.
But then there's the predictability of knowing almost out the gate that this dude was going to find his mom in the season finale.
Yes,
like that was a no-brainer. And I feel like telegraphing that almost from the first episode kind of blunted the edge of when he actually did find his mother. Shout out to Tatiana Maslany, who is great in everything she does. But yeah, it was just, it took a little bit of the oh shit out of him finding his mom at the end. Like, yeah, of course he was going to find her.
Yeah.
In the season finale.
And I think that's the stakes. I think that was the thing that, like, Professor D talks about that a lot, where when you're watching stuff, is there stakes to it? And I think that even with, say, comparing it to like a Night of the Seven Kingdoms, where the tone of it was different than your normal Game of Thrones. But then when it got to be back to Game of Thrones, it was Game of Thrones. So folks is dying and there was violence. You're like, "Oh yeah, I forgot. I'm in a world that everything sucks."
Yeah, that's horror. Everything's horrible.
Yeah.
And horrible things happen to good people.
Yeah, where I would say this, like, even when they did have stakes, it wasn't really stakes. Like a little bit here and there.
The Vulcan dying was big.
True.
And the fact that they stuck with it in the next episode where like all the cadets were completely out of sorts.
Yeah.
I feel like that worked, and that worked really, really well.
Yeah. And I wish they had more of that. I would say that helped shape the dynamic of it, because it showed, instead of just some random guy dying, it was someone that they actually had a connection to or they had conflict with. So then it wasn't just some, red shirt guy that got killed. It was someone that they actually was like either had a back and forth with or had some of a friendship. And so when he got killed, you're like, oh shit, they lost that dude. Right. Word. So, but that was a little small stake compared to the rest of it. And I think that's the part where, even in Star Trek, we're like, it in general, Star Trek doesn't really have heavy stakes, but when it does, the stakes matter and they reverberate for years and shows and episodes later on. Like Picard turning into a Borg. That's been a plot point for literally 5 years. I was going to say,
that's heavy stakes. Dominion War was heavy stakes.
So that's what I mean. I think for Academy, they still haven't had that part yet. Where
they haven't turned it on yet.
Yeah. So I hope, supposedly season 2, they have been writing. I mean, they wrote
Omega Mines around all of the Federation or along the Federation border.
Yeah, that was good.
That's stakesy.
I would have liked a couple ships blown up, just myself. I'm an analyst. That would have been cool. Yeah. To give you like some, I'm serious about this, but I think I've already said, they wrote season 2 with the cliffhanger to go into season 3 because before they knew all whatever's going on. And they've actually said they're going to stick to it, which I think I agree with that. Yo, man, stick to your guns, man. Yes, if you really believe in what your story was going, stick with it, even if you're not going to get that season 3, because then that will give it more of a punch. Because then it makes us, the viewers, be like, oh shit, no, I really need to get back to that letter writing. So, but yeah, overall, I think, unpopular opinion as most, because there's so much negative about it. I'm like, it's not that bad, man. It's like, if you like Star Trek,
it's not bad. It's not even not that bad. It's not bad at all. It's a good show.
If you like Star Trek, you'll enjoy it. And there's quibbles here and there, but like, to me, it's not a waste of time. And I think that was my big thing. I was a little apprehensive, but I'm glad that like when I finished it, I was like, oh, that was cool. Well, it felt good.
I would easily do a season 2 without even thinking about it. Looking forward to it. The mark of a good show is when it's done, you still find yourself like, oh wait, it's Thursday. I need to go watch the show. And for me, that's what was happening. I was like, oh shit, it's Thursday. Oh wait, it's done. Okay.
Yep. Yeah. And so we'll see how it goes early on. It's gonna be some interesting stuff, but thanks for listening. Like, subscribe, follow, share. Tell us that we're off. That was the last. I was laughing when we did our first 2 episodes. Folks is like, "Do we watch the same thing?" Yes, we did watch the same thing. We just looked at it. We looked at it in a more positive light. You was a Debbie Downer. So let us know what you guys think. I think we might not be on the popular part of it where we're thinking it's actually not that bad, but we'll see how everyone else talks about it. Let us know in the comments. And yeah, man, we out.
We strive to not be on the popular part of it.
Nice. Peace.